Among both civilized and uncivilized peoples, there is a close relation between sexual opportunity and cultural condition, and I have thought it worthwhile to conduct a detailed inquiry into the matter. The results of my inquiry and the conclusions I have drawn from the facts are presented in the following pages. In submitting them for consideration, I am conscious not only of the voluminous nature of the evidence, which I shall ask the reader to examine, but also of the established opinions which are current today. In regard to sexual regulations, these opinions may be said to be either dogmatic or theoretical. Those who adhere to dogmatic opinions claim that their conclusions are founded upon a supernatural sanction. But since this supernatural sanction is not recognized by all men, it follows that those who hold the dogmatic opinions cannot speak with authority except to those who, by recognizing the sanction, inevitably subscribe to those opinions already. The theoretical opinions are held by those who have rebelled against the dogmatism of the former party. They substitute an alleged rationalism for the supernatural sanction of their opponents. Yet their conclusions have no greater validity, for they do not always succeed in excluding the personal factor from their submissions, and when they attempt to justify their opinions by a reference to human records, they have a tendency to substitute conjectural hypotheses for rational inductions, and to submit a collection of apt illustrations as proof of their individual theories. In dealing with such subjects as sex and culture, these methods are disastrous, so I have endeavored both to devise a technique by means of which the personal factor may be avoided, and to adopt a procedure which will approach, so far as possible, the methods of the chemist and the physicist. In this manner, I hope to have safeguarded myself from premature and superficial conclusions. I am not unmindful of the handicaps that must be suffered by a student of human affairs who seeks to emulate the methods applied to the more exact sciences. Yet I am persuaded that if the study of human affairs is to be raised above the level of mere opinion, which is always subject to the time in which it is expressed, there must be a radical change in the methods which have been adopted in the past. So I propose to devote this chapter to the consideration of method and to the formulation of exact definitions. When a chemist conducts an inquiry into the behavior of two chemical elements, he does not express any personal opinion about the reaction. He accepts it as part of their inherent nature, and he publishes his formula in the language which is common among chemists. After this has been done, he may subject his material to a closer analysis. He may solicit the aid of other scientists, in order that the natural constitution of the elements may be examined more minutely. But the observation and acceptance of the original fact preceded this research, and the ultimate reason for the observed behavior is hidden in the ultimate nature of the physical universe. And the ultimate nature for the observed behavior is hidden in the ultimate nature of the physical universe. It is the same, I submit, in the study of human affairs. If, as a result of extended researches into human records, certain cultural factors are found to be coincident with certain social factors, we must first collect, classify, and present the evidence. We must then sift it as finely as possible in order that we may make some intelligible suggestion concerning the manner in which the phenomena are connected. After this has been done, we may solicit the aid of the psychologist and of the biologist in order that a concerted endeavor may be made to arrive at an agreed conclusion, but the acceptance of the original evidence must precede this subsequent discussion. We cannot bask in the sunshine of theory before we have plunged into the cold waters of fact. Moreover, the ultimate reason for the observed behavior will always remain undisclosed, being hidden in the ultimate nature of the human organism. Our individual opinions concerning the relation between the factors are irrelevant. If we attempt to intrude our personal bigotries, we shall deprive ourselves of the power of appealing to the unaided human reason. The experimental chemist, however, enjoys many advantages which are denied to the social scientists. A chemist can communicate his results by means of eloquent symbols, which will express his meaning in a precise and economical manner. The student of human affairs is compelled to state his evidence in words of common currency. and must preface his inquiry by the formulation of an exact technical language. A chemist can squeeze a symbolic equation into a page, devoting the remainder of his treatise to a discussion of its meaning. The social scientist must tread a long and weary path of monotonous exposition, postponing his interpretation until the whole of the evidence has been presented and elucidated. This is the only reliable method. The illustration of a personal theory by the citation of numerous examples is indecisive, for in this manner many opposing and even contradictory theories could be and indeed have been proved. A third advantage which the chemist enjoys is afforded by the nature of the material on which he works. When he has published his formula concerning the behavior of two chemical substances, every other chemist can test the truth of his conclusion by means of a simple experiment. There is no limit to the amount of the evidence, for there is no limit to the number of experiments. As a result of these experiments, a conclusion may be formed that so long as nature remains uniform, the observed reaction is inevitable. Now, a limitation of sexual opportunity always is, as so far as I know, always has been. Now, a limitation of sexual opportunity always is, and so far as I know, always has been, accompanied by a rise in cultural condition, but from a bare study of the facts alone, it is impossible for me to say that the coincidence is inevitable, for I am precluded from conducting a series of experiments by means of which the truth of the assertion or prophecy might be tested. Furthermore, I cannot say that the statement is true of every society which exists or has existed, for the evidence is not available on which such a declaration could be based. All I can do is to include in my survey as much evidence as is reliable and to defer a final conclusion until the whole of that evidence has been presented and agreed. And this is what I propose to do. The material which is available for an inquiry into the relation between sexual opportunity and cultural condition is of two kinds, historical and anthropological. It is usual to regard social history and social anthropology as separate subjects, but the distinction between them, I trust, is a temporary separation and not a statutory divorce. Indeed, my suggestion is that social history and social anthropology are the upper and lower portions of the same stream of knowledge. For the purposes of study, we may erect a temporary dam between them. But if we do not remove it when occasion demands, we shall find that the waters of our study will not arrive in the open sea of acceptance, of acceptable conclusion. They will waste their energies on an unfertile land which can produce nothing but indecisive judgments. At the same time, the division is more than an academic convention, so far as this inquiry is concerned. The historical and the anthropological facts are of a totally different character. In the records of history, we can observe the changes that occurred in the cultural condition of a society as century succeeded century. The study of social anthropology reveals a number of simpler peoples, scattered all over the world, occupying different positions in the cultural scale. The historical law codes and other appropriate data tell us of the changes that the members of historical societies made in their methods of regulating the relations between the sexes. But we must study the sexual regulations of uncivilized societies in a different manner, comparing the rules which operated in one society with those which prevailed in another society. In the one case, we compare the condition of a society with the condition of the same society in a previous or a subsequent epoch. In the other case, we compare the condition of one society with the condition of another society in the same epoch. In the one case, we move through time, in the other case, through space. If we were to concentrate on the historical facts, we should disregard the larger part of the evidence. If we confined our researches to uncivilized peoples, the most important societies would be excluded from the survey. Some of the historical evidence, however, is exceedingly fragmentary. It can be employed only as corroborative material for a conclusion which has been based on other and more complete evidence. I shall summarize the more important and more reliable historical facts in the final paragraphs of this book. But in order that the very considerable material may be managed more easily, I propose to make my inductions from the anthropological evidence alone. In this manner, moreover, I shall preserve the conventional distinction between social history and social anthropology. To some scholars, this may appear somewhat arbitrary. May I quote, then, what an eminent physicist has said in reference to scientific method? Everything, he declares, is linked with everything else. We may, however, choose our own range of study. We may concentrate on a certain small patch, or we can take a broad survey. By one method, there is limitation of breadth. By the other method, we run the risk of being superficial. If both breadth and depth are attended to by the same individual, they must be attended to at different times. It is not possible to work them concurrently. This Our comparative ignorance of human history is indeed lamentable. We possess reliable information concerning only a few societies which have inhabited a small part of the earth's surface for a short space of time. Even in this imperfect record, there are many gaps. The social and cultural condition of the Babylonians before 1800 BC is revealed in the Hammurabi Code, and in the extant inscriptions, contracts, and letters. That of the Sumerians is also known, though to a less degree, but no Egyptian law code has yet been recovered. And though our knowledge of Egyptian history extends over 3,000 years, there is a complete lack of detailed information in regard to the conditions prevailing in any particular century. Our knowledge of Assyria is confined almost to the post-Sennacherib epoch. Early Persian life is revealed only in glimpses. It is uncertain whether or not the customs of the Achaean Greeks are reflected in the Iliad and the Odyssey. Athenian law is a dark corner in an otherwise well-lit room. We should know very little about Dorian Sparta if we did not possess the Athenian writings. The laws of Manu tell us something about the conditions under which the ancient Hindus lived, but few facts can be gleaned about the early Chinese and Japanese. For our study of the Sassanids, Rawlinson is almost our only English authority. We must rely almost exclusively on Robertson Smith when we discuss early Arabia. Our knowledge of the Hittites, Neo-Babylonians, and Moors is not good enough to be used as the foundation of an inquiry. It can be used merely as corroborative evidence for a conclusion which has been based on more detailed material. The Romans, Teutons, and Anglo-Saxons are the only societies of which the social and cultural history is really well known. Researches which are confined to this historical material cannot claim to be exhaustive. For the most nuptial regulations of the Sumerians, Babylonians, Athenians, Romans, Anglo-Saxons, and English, and for some comments on the nature of these regulations, see paragraphs 167 to 73. The sense of the word culture is somewhat extensive. It is used to denote social customs, religion, literature, art forms, and sciences, methods of government and manufacture, means of communication, types of houses, and all practical industries. We speak of culture contact when we refer to the meeting of societies of which the culture differed, and of culture diffusion when we allude to the fact that people who travel do not absorb the culture of those among them whom of those among whom they settle, but preserve some portion of their own, so that the culture of both parties is affected. The so-called cultural ages, the Neolithic and the Paleolithic, for example, of the Aurignacian and the Magdalenian, have their various types of culture, which are used as evidence of the evolution of human culture. It is obvious that the application of so protean a word must be strictly limited before it can be said to possess any single precise meaning. To arrive at this limitation, I will state a few general facts in regard to uncivilized peoples. To arrive at this limitation, I will state a few general facts in regard to uncivilized peoples. The work of Fraser, Van Gennep, Drieberg, and Malinowski has demonstrated that the members of uncivilized societies feel that they are surrounded by certain forces or powers. In times of sickness or distress, at planting and harvest, when rain is needed or comes too much, at birth, adolescence, marriage, and death, and on every occasion of importance, these forces or powers make themselves manifest. Their needs, if any, must be satisfied in the proper manner, in the proper place, by the proper person, and at the proper time. Under certain circumstances, some savages consider that they can control the course of nature by right and spell, compel the wind and the weather, and ward off dangers from themselves, their cattle, and their crops. They think that they can persuade the earth to bear fruit, and the beasts to multiply. At least, that is the manner in which the various rites have been interpreted, where we must remember that the magical ceremonies are not miraculous as well as magical. And it is this simple fact which makes me doubt if we have always understood correctly what was in the native mind. As Mr. Drieberg has said, magic is not all-powerful. If it were, the savage would not work at all. The truth seems to be that the savage conducts the rites which seem to us so futile and so complicated because he regards them as being both necessary and efficacious. To him, they are necessary because the powers that surround him must be attended to, and efficacious because if the proper rites are performed by the proper person in the proper place at the proper time, there will be nothing to fear. We must not go beyond the evidence and maintain that such savages are ignorant of all natural law. They may not conceive of nature as an assembly of orderly activities which follow one another in a determined order, but they have a very clear idea of what is usual and unusual in their limited world. The Melanesians, of whom Professor Malinowski has written, possess a sea lore as rational and as consistent as our own, but they believe that incantations must be sung when a canoe is being made. Their methods of agriculture are based on logic and experience, and they always plant at the right season, but in their opinion, the powers in the universe must be attended to while the planting is being carried out. They believe that magic is indispensable to success. And among such peoples, the domain of the sacred or the dangerous so permeates the profane or the ordinary that nothing can be undertaken without attention being paid to the powers which are manifest therein. The simulation and control of the sun, sky, and earth, however, are only part of the business of life, or to put the matter in another and more accurate way. It is not only in the sun, sky, and earth that the powers are manifest. The great events of every person's life, birth, adolescence, and death are also times of peculiar danger and immense significance. Therefore, on these occasions, also certain social ceremonies must be performed, which are equally necessary and equally efficacious. Inevitably, every man and woman must pass through these crises. And as an insulation against danger, and as an injection of power for the negotiation of future difficulties. Certain ceremonies must be performed in the proper manner by the proper person in the proper place and at the proper